go ahead and pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you for the day. Thank you for the blessings you've given us. Thank you for the students here. Just pray help us in this class. Pray we get it all accomplished today, Lord, in Jesus' name, amen. All right, questions on your homework? Questions at all? Pretty good. All right, we can pass those forward then. All right, today we want to talk about direct variations. Alright, direct variation function looks like this. The function rule will look f of x equals kx is my direct variation function rule. The k is a constant of variation. Again, if we're talking about function, we're talking about an input and an output. We have an input value and an output value. And all my input values and my output values vary by a constant of variation, like k. And usually it would be a product or a multiplication. Take, for instance, if I take a constant of variation, direct variation function rule, and I have one item, and it increased by 5, then every other item would increase by a factor of 5. By the direct variation rule. So this is what every direct variation rule function looks like. Y equals kx. So take, for instance, we have x and an f of x, my input and my output. And I have when I put 2 in, I get 10. When I put 3 in, I get 15. When I put 4 in, I get 20. I can always find my k, my constant of variation, by taking f of x divided by x. If I take 10 divided by 2, I get 5. 15 divided by 3, I get 5. 20 divided by 4, I get 5. I can always tell my constant or my direct variation functions by taking my output, dividing by my input, and if every one of those division problems get me the same answer, then I have a direct variation function. If any one of them does not get me the answer like the rest, then I don't have a direct variation function. So I can always check. Let me ask, is this a direct variation function? Well, to find out, take my output divided by my input. My f of x divided by my x. My y divided by my x. Because sometimes you would see your direct variation written with a y instead of the f of x. Y equals kx would be my direct variation function. So again, my direct variation function will look like it's always a straight line that goes through my origin. Always a straight line that goes through my origin. It will always have a look like f of x equals kx. So if I have f of x equals 3x, that is a direct variation function. If I have f of x equals 2x. That is a direct variation function. If I have f of x equals 2x plus 5, well, that's not a direct variation function because I have the 5. It will not go through the origin. So my direct variation function always have this look to it. F of x equals kx, my direct variation function. My k is my constant of variation. My k always stays the same. So when I ask for a function rule, take for instance here, is this a direct variation function? Yes, it is. Well, what is the function rule? The function rule would be f of x equals 5x. Because what is my k? My k equals 5. How do I know what my k is? My output divided by my input. My output divided by my input. My output divided by my input. All the same, my k is 5. So this is my function rule. So anytime the question is, what is the function rule, that is what I'm looking for. F of x equals 5x or 6x or negative 3x or whatever the function rule is supposed to be. Questions so far? Direct variation is not that difficult. So here's a question. If I have a direct variation function and x equals 4 when y equals 10, what is the function rule, constant of variation, and what is y when x equals 15? So I got 3 questions here I need to answer. The first question to answer would be the simplest one to answer first is the constant of variation. How do I find the constant of variation? We said it like 25 times already today. How do I find the constant of variation? Yes? Y divided by x. Output divided by input. Alright? Y divided by x. What is my y divided by x here? So my k is 5/2. So now I can write my function rule. My function rule is for a direct variation, f of x equals kx. Well, what is my k? 5/2. So there is my function rule. Then I ask, what is y when x equals 15? Well, then I just want to go what is f of 15? Substitute it in. So my y is 75/2. Question 1, question 2, and question 3 is what I'm looking for when I have things like this. And this is finding my missing part finding my missing part using the direct variation function rule. Using the direct variation function rule. Let's look at another one. So here I get the direct variation. Y equals 10 when x equals negative 20. What is the constant of variation? What is the function rule? And what is x when y equals 45? So the first one I want to find is k. How do I find k? How do I find the constant of variation? What's that? Y divided by x. That's going to be 10 divided by negative 20, which is negative 1/2. What is my direct variation function rule? For any direct variation, what's my function rule?
F of x equals kx.
All right, y equals kx, or f of x equals kx. So here, my function rule would be f of x equals negative 1/2 x. And then lastly, what is x when y equals 45? Well, I'm going to use my function rule. 45 goes in f of x, negative 1/2 x. How do I get rid of the negative 1/2?
Divide it off.
Excuse me?
Divide it off.
All right, or another way we can do it is to multiply everything by negative 2. You were close. You want to get rid of the negative 2 as well. So x equals negative 90. Using the function rule. So we're using the function rule. I'll ask you to solve for the missing part by using the function rule. And this is using the function rule. Any questions there? Yes?
Where did the f of x go? Is it just like you don't need it there?
Well, the f of x here is actually my y, because f of x and y are interchangeable. They're the same thing. So if they give me y, I'm going to replace the f of x with whatever they say the y is. Now there's another method to find the missing piece of any direct variation problem. If we go back to my direct variation equation, y equals kx. Well, if I simplify this, and I have two examples in the same direct variation problem, I get y1 equals kx, or 1, and y2 equals kx2. And I solve for k. What do I know about my k's in a direct variation problem? Okay, but in all my cases, all my inputs and output sets, what do I know about my k in a direct variation problem? What does the k represent? Constant. Constant means, what does constant mean? Always the same. Always the same. So any direct variation problem, my k's are the same. So I'm going to set these to equal to each other. I can set up a proportion. Here is my constant or direct variation proportion. y1 over x1 equals y2 over x2. y1 over x1 equals y2 over x2. And you can see where the first example is on the left, second example on the right. Doesn't really matter, but you see my y's are on the top and my x's on the bottom. So if I took this equation here, this would be my x1 and my y1. This would be my x2 and y2. So I could use this. y1 over x1 equals y2 over x2. Put y1 over x1 equals y2 over x2. Cross multiply. 20 times 45, that's negative 180. I'm sorry, nope, that's not right. That is 900, and divide by 10, I get x2 equals negative 90, as we have here. Do the same thing here. Here's my x1 and y1. This is my x2 and y2. Again, set up my formula. Y1 over x1 equals y2 over x2. And substitute. That's 10 over 4 equals y over 15. And then cross multiply. 4y equals 150. Y equals 150 over 4, which equals 75 over 2. And I get the same answer. This method is using direct variation function rules. This is using direct variation proportions. Direct variation proportion, direct variation function rule. Get two different methods to get the same answer. I will ask you to find the missing part by using one of those methods. So you need to know both. Direct variation function rule, direct variation proportion. Okay? Let's look at another example. Here we got direct variation. If y equals 25 when x equals 5, what is y when x equals 100? Using direct variation function rule. First thing I need to do is find my k. How do I find my k? Y divided by x. So my k is 5. What is my function rule? Y equals 5x. Then what do they ask me to find? Y when x equals 100. I get y equals 500. So using direct variation, there's 3 steps. 1, 2, 3. Using direct variation. If I'm using proportion, I'm looking for y1 over x1 equals y2 over x2. My y1 is 25. My x1 is 5. My y2 is what I'm looking for. And my x2 is 100. Cross multiply. And solve. So my y2 is 100. Direct variation rules, proportion. Using proportion, using direct variation. Make sure you know the difference between the two methods, because I'll ask you to do both. If I don't specify, then you do whichever one you feel is easier for you, using your function rule. Now, when we look at direct variation, y equals kx. Y equals kx is a linear function. It is a straight line that goes through the origin. Every single time it goes through the origin. What is another way we can look at k? Y equals kx. We talked about linear equations before, linear functions in Algebra 1, I'm sure. What's another word for k? The slope. K is basically the slope of my direct variation. So we have an equation, or if we have a graph, we can find my direct variation function By finding my constant of variation, by looking at the slope. How do we find slope? That's the slope-intercept, but how do I find my m?
M equals bx, right?
What's that?
Is it M equals bx?
No, not quite. How do I find my slope if I have a line? How do I find my slope? What's 3 words for slope?
We should go from where it intersects the y and then up and then to where it intersects again.
Somewhat, yes. 3 words that we use for slope. It is rise, overrun. How far up I go compared to how far across I go. Alright? Which basically you explained. I just didn't put it in those words. So if you look on page 70. That's not what I want. Alright, 71. Let's look at 71. Number 8. Page 71, number 8. So I ask, determine whether y varies directly with x. Is it a direct variation? How will we tell? How will we tell if it's a direct variation? I'm looking to see if what is the same. My constant, my k, is the same. How do I find my k? Y divided by x. So I'm going to take each pair of points, do y divided by x. So 9 divided by 27 is, alright, leave it in a fraction. 9 divided by 27 in a fraction. Anybody? 1/3. 10 divided by 30. 1/3. 20 divided by 60. 1/3. Are they all the same? They work? 9 divided by 27? Yes, they're all the same, right? 1/3. So therefore, is it a direct variation? Yes. Alright, so yes, y varies directly with x. There's the first question. If so, find the constant of variation. What's my constant of variation? 1/3. And write the function rule. What's the function rule? F of x equals 1/3 x. 3 questions, 3 answers. Okay? Common mistake in all my classes. They only give me one of those answers. I'm looking for all 3 answers. Number 10. Does y vary directly with x? How do we tell? Y divided y by x. 9 divided by 3. 10 divided by 4. 10/4, so 5 halves. Are they the same? No. So does y vary directly with x? No. Y does not vary directly with x. That's the kind of answer I'm looking for. Complete answer. Does y vary directly with x here? No. Y does not vary directly with x. So therefore, is there a constant of variation? No. Is there a function rule? No. Alright? 11 through 18. Determine whether y varies directly with x. If so, find the constant of variation. What does my variation rule look like? What does my direct variation rule look like? Y equals kx. Y equals kx. So number 12. Does y vary directly with x? Yes. It looks like y equals kx. What's my constant of variation? 6. So k equals 6. So I'm looking for, yes, y does vary directly with x. My k equals 6. 14. Does y vary directly with x? No, because of the plus 1. Number 16, does y vary directly with x? Yes, it looks like y equals kx. What's my k? Negative 5. Number 18, does y vary directly with x? No. So we don't have to write any other answers there. 20 through 24. For exercise 19 to 24, y varies directly with x. Does not specify which method to use. You can use either one. So we're going to try one of each. So number 20, we're going to do the direct function rule method. First of all, I need to find my k. How do I find my k? Y divided by x. So in that case here, my k is k equals 3. So my function rule is equals 3x. Then they ask, find x when y equals 12. So where do I put the 12? 12 equals 3x, so x equals 4. Alright, so using the direct function rule. Number 22, we use the proportion method. If y equals 5 when x equals negative 3, find x when y equals negative 1. I'm going to go y1 over x1 equals y2 over x2. What's y1? What's x1? What's y2? And I'm looking for x2. Okay? What will I do? Cross multiply. And then divide. X equals 3/5. Alright, so you use either method. Either method. Alright, turn the page to page 72. Number 30. Determine whether y varies directly with x. If so, find the constant of variation and write the function rule. Number 30. Does y vary directly with x? Alright, I see a couple of head shakes. No. Alright, because my k do not equal. Number 32. Does y vary directly with x? Alright, see a couple of head shakes? No, because my k's do not equal. 36 through 42. Write and graph a direct variation equation that passes through each point. Alright? To find a direct variation equation, I must find what first? I need to find my k. How do I find my k? Y divided by my x. So 36. What is my direct variation equation? That passes through the point -3, -7. Correct. Y equals 7 over 3x. Now they ask you to make a table. I don't want you to make a table. Direct variation always goes through what point? 0, 0. And my other point is -3, -7. And then draw a line through them. And that's all you have to do. 38. -0.1 and 50. How do I find my k? Y over x. So this would be 50 over 0.1, -0.1. What's 50 divided by -0.1? over 0.1 would move the decimal point over 1, move the decimal point over 1. So it would be negative 500. So what's my function rule? Y equals negative 500 x. To graph it, always going to go through what point? 0, 0. Instead of putting 500 marks, I don't need to put 500 marks. Just go, put this negative 500, put this 500, and on point 1, so I'm going to draw a line through here. Okay? So this would be negative 1, this would be 1. And that's all I need you to do. Write your points here, and you can write negative 1, 500, and then you can put 1, negative 500. That's all I need you to do when you graph. All right? So is there any questions? Everybody good? Didn't move too fast? Everybody got everything I'm looking for a direct variation? All right, very good. So you're going to be working on page 71, 7 through 45, every other odd. 7 through 45, every other odd. You have about 10 minutes left to work.